There are people in this world who eat alone every single day, not by choice, but because no one asked to join them anymore. Marcus was one of those people, until the day a mother with tired eyes and a hungry child sat down across from him and changed everything. Marcus used to have Sunday dinners, the kind where the table was too small for everyone who showed up, where his sister would bring her famous mac and cheese, and his nephew would steal rolls before grace was said, where laughter spilled into the kitchen and someone always stayed too late, washing dishes and telling old stories. He worked construction back then. Good, honest work. Came home sore but satisfied. Had a small apartment in a neighborhood where people still said good morning. He wasn't rich, but he had enough. Enough for rent. Enough for groceries. Enough to buy his nephew a birthday present and take his sister out for coffee once a month. Life wasn't perfect, but it was his. Then the injury happened on a Tuesday. A fall from scaffolding. Not dramatic. Not the kind you see in movies. Just a wrong step. A moment of imbalance. And suddenly, everything tilted. 3 fractured ribs. A broken wrist. Weeks of recovery, the doctors said. Weeks turned into months. The company let him go. Budget cuts, they said. We'll call you when something opens up. They never called. The medical bills came in envelopes he was afraid to open. Rent became impossible. His sister helped at first, but she had her own struggles, a son to raise, her own rent to pay. He saw the worry in her eyes every time she handed him money, saw how it cost her more than dollars. So he stopped asking. He moved into his car in late September when the nights still held some warmth. He told himself it was temporary. He told himself he'd figure it out. But winter came early that year. There's a specific kind of invisible you become when you lose your address. People look past you, through you, like you're made of the same cold air they're trying to avoid. Marcus learned to keep his head down, learned which parking lots wouldn't chase him off at night, learned which fast food bathrooms he could use to wash up in the mornings before the manager started his shift. He stopped answering his phone. What could he say? Hey sis, yeah, I'm doing great. Just living in a '98 Honda Civic and pretending I'm not terrified every single night. The messages from her piled up. Marcus, call me back. I'm worried about you. Please, just let me know you're okay. He wasn't okay, but he couldn't tell her that. So the silence grew, and with it, the distance. People don't tell you about the small things that break you when you're homeless. It's not always hunger, though that's real too. It's the way you start to forget what it feels like to be warm, to take a hot shower, to sleep without listening for footsteps or sirens or someone tapping on your window. Marcus would wake up at 5 a.m., stiff and aching, his breath visible in the cold car. He'd drive to the grocery store parking lot and wait for it to open. Sometimes he'd buy a coffee just to hold something warm, just to sit in the cafe area and feel like a person for 20 minutes. He'd watch people come and go, families, couples, people with shopping lists and weekend plans, people with homes to return to. He wondered if they knew how lucky they were. He wondered if he'd ever be that lucky again. By November, he'd lost 15 pounds. Not because he wanted to, but because eating became a math problem. A single meal at a fast food place meant less gas in the tank. Less gas meant he couldn't drive to the day labor sites early enough to get picked for work. So he ate less, and moved slower, and felt himself fading. Some days, he'd sit in the public library until closing. It was warm, quiet. No one bothered him if he sat in the back corner with a book he wasn't really reading. He'd watch families at the children's section, Mom's reading to toddlers. Dad's helping with homework. He thought about his nephew. Wondered if the kid even remembered him anymore. Wondered if his sister told him Uncle Marcus was just busy. At night, parked behind a closed shopping center, he'd lie in the back seat and stare at the ceiling. He'd think about the version of himself from a year ago. The man who had keys, who had plans, who believed things would work out if you just kept trying. That man felt like a stranger now. It was a Wednesday in mid-December when Marcus sat in his car and realized he didn't want to wake up the next morning. Not in a loud way, not in a desperate, dramatic way, just quietly, like turning off a light. The cold had settled into his bones. His phone had died 2 days ago. No way to charge it, no reason anyway. He had $4.32 in his wallet and half a tank of gas. He sat there in the dark, and for the first time in months, he cried, not because something terrible had just happened, but because nothing had. Nothing changed. Nothing got better. And he was so tired. He woke up Thursday morning because his body did what bodies do. They survive, even when you're not sure you want them to. He drove to the grocery store, bought a cup of coffee with the last few dollars, sat in the cafe area like he always did, and stared at nothing. That's when he saw her, a young woman, maybe 30, with a boy who couldn't have been more than 5. The kid had bright eyes and a dinosaur backpack. The mom had the kind of tired that comes from working 2 jobs and still not having enough. Marcus watched as she ordered at the counter. 1 sandwich, 1 milk, for the boy. She didn't order anything for herself. The boy sat down at a table near Marcus, swinging his legs and humming. The mom stood by the counter, checking her phone with the expression of someone calculating which bill could wait another week. The boy looked over at Marcus. "Hi," he said. Marcus blinked. "Hey, buddy, are you eating lunch too?" Marcus looked down at his coffee. "Yeah, something like that." The boy smiled. "Me too. My mom got me a sandwich." The mother walked over, gently touching her son's shoulder. "Sweetie, don't bother the man." "He's not bothering me," Marcus said quietly. She looked at him then, really looked, and Marcus saw it, the recognition. Not pity, not judgment, just knowing. She knew what it was like to be hungry, to count pennies, to choose between yourself and someone you love. She hesitated, then said softly, "My son's hungry. Can we stay a while? Sit with you?" Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. "Yeah," he whispered. "Yeah, you can stay." She sat down, split the sandwich in half, gave 1 piece to her son, and then, without a word, she slid the other half across the table to Marcus. "I already ate," she lied. Marcus stared at the sandwich, at this woman who clearly hadn't eaten, at her son, who watched with innocent eyes. "You don't have to." "I know," she said gently, "but you look like you could use it." Marcus picked up the sandwich, and when he took the first bite, he tasted more than bread and cheese. He tasted kindness. He tasted being seen. They sat there for 20 minutes. The boy told Marcus about his dinosaur toys, about his favorite cartoon, about how his mom worked really hard and sometimes she was tired, but she always made time for stories. The mother didn't ask Marcus his story. She didn't need to. She just sat with him, like he was worth sitting with. When they got up to leave, she touched his shoulder. "There's a church on 5th Street, she said quietly. "They do a meal service on Thursdays, and they have a guy who helps with job applications. No questions asked, just if you need it." Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. As they walked away, the boy turned and waved. Marcus waved back, and then, alone at the table, he put his head in his hands. and let himself cry again. But this time, it felt different. Marcus went to that church, not the next day, but the day after when he found the courage. The job placement coordinator was a quiet man named Gene who'd been homeless himself once. He didn't make Marcus explain anything, just asked what he was good at, what he needed. It took 3 weeks to find work. Day labor at first, then a warehouse job with benefits. It took 2 months to save enough for a security deposit. The apartment was small, 1 room, but it had a lock, and heat, and a bed. Marcus called his sister from his new phone. She cried when she heard his voice. His nephew asked if Uncle Marcus could come to his birthday party. "Yeah, buddy," Marcus said, smiling through tears. "I'll be there." He never forgot that mother in the grocery store. Never forgot the way she shared food she didn't have. The way she saw him when everyone else looked away. Now, when Marcus gets his paycheck, he stops by that same grocery store. He buys sandwiches, and he looks for the people sitting alone. Kindness doesn't always look like grand gestures. Sometimes it's just splitting a sandwich you can't afford to share. Sometimes it's sitting with someone who's been invisible for too long. Sometimes it's believing that someone is worth your time when they've forgotten they're worth anything at all. Marcus learned something in that grocery store cafe, that we're all one bad day, one injury, one loss away from needing someone to see us, to sit with us, to remind us we're still human. So today, I want to ask you something. Who in your life needs to be seen? Who's sitting alone, waiting for someone to notice? Maybe it's not a stranger. Maybe it's someone you know, someone who's been quieter than usual, someone who says they're fine, but isn't. Kindness doesn't cost much, but it's worth everything to the person who receives it. If this story touched you, leave a comment sharing a time when someone's kindness changed your day, or when you were able to be that kindness for someone else. And if you believe the world needs more stories like this, subscribe and share this video. Because every act of kindness creates a ripple, and every ripple can become a wave.